How to go from a solid object to a 3D printed version of it without editing using a Seal Lite scanner in simple form, not at all simple. Okay, for Christmas I got this fancy new Seal Lite 3D scanner, and I do a lot of 3D printing and CNC work, and it would really be nice to be able to scan objects and not have to design them all using CAD. And after using the scanner for a few hours, I was getting very frustrated, and I did a lot of searching for tutorials and things like that, and I was trying to scan a relatively simple object, nothing too complicated, and what I really wanted was a 3D version of it. And as you can see, I have been successful, and so I thought I would build a quick tutorial that, I don't know if it'll be quick actually in the end, that walked people through initially using the Seal Lite scanner and specifically the JMStudio software, because that was where I stumbled. It is brilliant software, but the learning curve is very steep. So for this tutorial, I'm going to scan this object. It is certainly a less than ideal layout here. I'm just scanning it on my mouse pad in front of the computer, but I was able to get reasonable results using it, and for the purposes of the tutorial I'm going to go with that. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume you actually were successfully able to get your scanner hooked up with its power adapter and its USB-C cable and everything, and get the software installed to the point where it recognizes your scanner and you're ready to go. So we're going to go into Start Scanning. That brings you into the scan window. There was a little pop-up tutorial that shows up that I've turned off, and what I'm going to do here is just move my scanner a little closer, and you can see the object in the center of the window up here, and I'm going to do a scan. Now on the left hand side over here it says it's too far away, so I'm going to bring it a little bit closer and look down at it a little more, and I'm getting it in the ideal range over here. That's how far away from the object, and I will do a scan. So when it's actually scanning here, I haven't changed any settings, I've just used the default settings. When it's scanning, I then move the scanner up and down so that I get it from different angles, just slightly different angles and different orientations, and I capture a couple of hundred frames down here with the frame counter. And when you click on this frame counter down here at the bottom, the pink button, it will stop. So that's the first scan. It goes through this rebuilding process pretty quick, unless you have thousands of frames. I found it doesn't take thousands of frames, and you end up with a scan, which is pretty cool. But of course, this is a scan, and I'm just clicking and moving the mouse to move it around. You can see, because it's a scan from only one side. Okay, if I hold the Shift key down, I can just rotate it, and then I can turn it around and see where it is. So obviously I need to see what's on the other side. So I'm going to rotate the object around, and I'm going to append another scan. So I just click on the append button, and you can see when the preview comes up, you can see I'm moving it to the center on the dot up here. I've just centered the object on the dot. My brightness is set to 9 right now, and you can see I'm getting a few of these red dots up here, which means it's a little bit too bright. I probably could lower the brightness a little bit. Anyways, I'm just going to go with this for now. I go to scan, and again I just tilt the scanner up and down a little bit and rotate it a little bit, and up and down, and rotate it the other way. And I'm not sure whether this is good or bad or perfect or what. Anyways, couple hundred frames, click the pink button there, and that is my second scan. As soon as it finishes rebuilding. So now I have two scans, and the key is down here in these two areas here. And the magic that I was missing initially has to do with this view or not view, okay? Because I was taking these two scans and I was trying to do an align, and I'd get an error message, at least 2 scan data required, and I'm thinking, I've done 2 scan data, why isn't it doing that? Well, 2 scan data have to be visible in order to align them. So as soon as I click on the eyeball here so that both of these are visible and they show up in the upper area here as scans for doing alignment on, then I can do an alignment. And it will take not too long to do an alignment, and it will be a horrible alignment. This was the next piece of the learning curve. I'll let that finish. And you can see that hasn't aligned them at all in any reasonable fashion. So the next piece of the learning curve that I learned was go back to the editing screen before I do an alignment. And what you have to do is you have to make sure you get rid of anything that isn't part of the object itself. So I'm using the control key here, and it's a strange little lasso approach. I'm using the control key here to lasso areas that are not part of the model itself, and it will highlight them. And then I can, once it's highlighted them, I can hit the delete key and get rid of them. I believe there is faster ways of doing this. But just reorient the model and then lasso areas that are not part of the model. And I'm going to do a rough cut here on this. Okay, it'll highlight that. And then I can zoom in on the model and I can do a much finer detailed hack of things that don't belong. So I can trace around the base of it there and get rid of things that don't exist. Lasso, highlight, delete. Now, it's actually really crucial that you get rid of things, even extraneous things that are out here. So holding control again and getting rid of all of these extraneous bits that are out here that are well beyond what the scanner could see because it was on the back side. And as it turns out, orienting the image in different ways will really help you get rid of a lot of things that don't belong. So you can see there's underneath here, there shouldn't be anything. So I can actually get rid of everything that's underneath there. And cleaning up any of this extraneous garbage is just as important as getting a good scan in the first place. So getting rid of what doesn't belong in the scan is as important as getting an accurate scan. You can see I have some pixels up here that don't belong either. So I can go around and I can just lasso like that and select those and get rid of them. So now I have a much cleaner. Now in fact this circular part here doesn't belong as part of the scan either, so I can highlight that and get rid of that because that's part of my mouse pad on the bottom, and I can do that. So now that I've done this scan, I can make it go away by getting rid of the eyeball there and click the eyeball on this one, and I can do the same on this. And you can see sometimes just different orientations make it a lot easier to highlight and eliminate what you want to get rid of very quickly without spending a lot of time on it. So I can do that. That highlights a big area and gets rid of it. And then I can shift to a different orientation and I can lasso more And let's see how good I can do here with the mouse. Lasso that and get rid of it. And again, I have pieces here off to the side that clearly are not part of the model, so I can get rid of them as well. So I can just run down this side. So it is just as important to get rid of pieces that are not part of the model as it is to scan accurately in the first place. I'm not even going to bother doing any more cleanup here. So now at this point, I can then highlight both of these models and go back up here to click on the Align and tell it to do an alignment. And this time, because I've gotten rid of the back, you can see it at least was able to align them in a reasonable fashion. It got the right ends pointing in the right way, holding shift to rotate. So that is a much better alignment. It is not perfect. So I can go back to Align, and this was something that took me a while to figure out. I can go into manual align mode. And what we have here is you can turn on or off which models you want to use, and the first one you turn on becomes your reference. The one at the bottom, and it's the reference. And the second one you turn on is the one that you're going to try and align in the same orientation. And what you want to do is, there are 3 points here, 1, 2, 3, red, green, blue, and they're highlighted over here. You can choose which one you're working with at the time. You want to find views of the model. You want to rotate each one so that you're looking at the same area. So I've got the red one here, and I'm going to I'm going to right click to place the red dot here on this one and here on this one. And then I'm going to select the green dot, and I'm going to say on this model, let me scroll down here. On this model, I'm going to right click here to place it. And on this one, I'm going to right click here to place it. And then the third one is the blue one, and I'm going to right click here to place it and here to place it. But it's important to look and make sure that they're both in the same place, because what happens is if I right click somewhere not near a model, it will just deselect it. So I have to go back and select it again. But if I'm near a model, it'll jump to the closest scanned pixel. And I have to make sure that I'm looking at the same pixels on both views to make sure that it orients things. And so now that I've got the 3 points, I believe, correctly selected for the different views, if I do an align, it will take my reference points and do the manual alignment. And you can see it actually came much closer here. At that point, once you've finished aligning, I can go back up here and I can go into the process mode. So that was up here clicking process. And I can make a name for it. I'll call it battery tutorial, and I'll apply. And I can refine based on those 2 scans and the alignment. Now, I can get rid of noise up here. I didn't choose those before. I'll do this one first, and then we'll go back and reprocess. So this will actually process the model and produce a 3D object from those 2 scans. This is all happening in real time. There's no delays or anything like that. And it'll export, and I'm calling it battery tutorial V1, because we may refine this more. So there I have a 3D object, which is reasonable, not horrible. But obviously the bottom side was not done because none of the scans were there. So I can do another scan with the bottom side, and again, this object has a cutout underneath which is not accurately displayed, but I can do another scan of the bottom side so that I can append another scan and realign all three of those, and that should fill in the bottom half. The other thing I can do is I can go back into edit mode, sorry, not align, I can go into edit mode here, and I can unhighlight the model and go back to my first or my second scans here. You can see it's the silver one that I want. I didn't get rid of this inside silver. So I'll turn off the blue here, and I'll just leave the silver, and I will use my control key again to trace around and get rid of, and that didn't highlight. I ran into this bug once before. I found if I unhighlighted and highlighted, then I could highlight what I wanted gone. And now I'm ready to reprocess, but I needed to select both scans to reprocess. So I'm ready to reprocess with the two scans and get a better 3D model without that flat piece on the bottom. Battery tutorial V2. So this is the second version of it. So now I have the same thing, but I don't have that piece in the bottom. Now, if I get rid of, if I choose options like remove noises and repair gaps, it will then, when I process it, try and apply things properly. But again, I have to unhighlight the fixed model and highlight my two scans to process. This will get rid of some of the noise areas where there were single pixels that I hadn't deleted in my cleanup. So this is now version 3 of the object. And there we go. We now have, it did some repair and it patched some things to make solid model out of it. This is getting close enough that you can actually get something that you can refine further. So I think that's enough for a quick tutorial to get you going. The objects as they are, you can then bring right into your 3D slicer and print them out if you want. Hope this helps.